Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today, where we'll be discussing the 7 common pitfalls of CRM adoption and how to level up to beat them. I'm Chip House, CMO here at Insightly, and I'll be moderating today's webinar. So this is the reason that we're here today. I mean, 70% per some data sources of CRM implementations actually fail. And this has been studied for the past 20 some years. You can see all the different sources there on the screen. And really a CRM implementation becomes successful when the internal strategy, marketing, sales, service has been very well defined. And the way we think about it is that the CRM system should follow the strategy rather than the other way around. And that's why we're all here today to talk through that. This can be tough over time as you add employees, add functionality and features, or add new products. And so I'm super excited to move into the content today and meet our today's speakers. So we've got Zeke Silva with us today, and Zeke brings his 8 years of customer support expertise to today's discussion. He currently serves as the VP of Support and Services at Insightly, where he leads teams that are in the customer support and professional service teams. Prior to Insightly, he held technical support management roles at both Intuit and Apple, and he's no stranger to implementation and onboarding best practices with all of his work. We also are super excited to be joined by Aaron Matthey today, who's today's main presenter. And Aaron has worked with small businesses for over 10 years, helping them grow, scale, and train their teams. She's the founder of Business Made Simple, a consulting company specializing in workflow management, process mapping and documentation, training solutions, and standard operating procedures. And she's helped several companies get the most of their CRM. So welcome, Zeke and Aaron. I'm super excited to have you both today. And Aaron, I will pass it to you.
Thank you so much, Chip. I appreciate the intro there. I think the metrics there definitely tell the tale that if you don't put some thought and have a lot of preparation, that it's very difficult to roll out a successful CRM without overcoming a lot of pitfalls. And so our goal really today is to help everybody understand what a full CRM adoption plan looks like. So what should be a part of that, and how to get your team excited about the changes. When you've got a good rollout plan and your team on board, those are the two biggest things that will make the biggest difference in helping you to get a successful adoption plan to overcome those pitfalls. So with that, let's jump in and talk about pitfall number 1. So pitfall number 1 is assuming that everyone has your same vision. And how you perceive your CRM implementation and how your team sees that implementation may be very different. And the reason for that is you've done a lot of work helping to get the CRM ready ahead of time. So you've thought about what is the functionality that we need. You've been thinking about, which software is going to best match that functionality and all of the customization that you're trying to do. And you're very clear on what your goals are. But your team has not likely been as involved in that selection process. And so your visions look a little bit different. There we go. So what you see here on your side of the project is you may be looking at things like, hey, we're going to have increased automation. Our sales are going to go up. We're going to have that one central database, and we're going to have streamlined communication with everyone in the team. Because you've done all the work and you know what the background is and it's very clear on what the goal is, that's what you'll see. But your team, because they haven't been as part of that adoption process, they may be just looking at it saying, oh, I've got a new software I've got to learn, and I'm going to have to change all of my habits, and it's going to disrupt my daily flow. And there is just that fear of the unknown, that they're not sure exactly what this new software is going to look like. And so to get everyone on that same vision, it's important to view the CRM adoption from the perspective of who's going to be using it and show them how using it is going to make their lives better. So there's 2 things there that we like to talk about. One is recognizing the impact that the CRM is going to have on each role. So the way that I recommend that you do that is by starting by listing out all of the roles that are going to be impacted by the change. So who's going to be on that software? who's going to be using the CRM, and then think about how that change or that impact is going to show up for them. So think about what processes is it going to impact, and how is their normal workflow in the day going to be changed. So for example, if you were, if you're looking at it from the eyes of a salesperson, you're going to be saying, well, the way that their leads come into them is going to be different, and how they move them through the pipeline is going to be different. And it's going to impact them hugely because salespeople are in those CRMs all the time. So think about, is it going to impact how they're sending emails? Is it going to impact, are they calling through the new CRM? So thinking through how is their everyday workload going to change? And then next, I want you to think about how does the CRM benefit them in their specific role? You'll always get a higher buy-in if you tell them specifically how it's going to make their life better, right? So think about what problems the CRM is going to solve for them. Is it going to reduce their keystrokes? Is it going to help them through automation? Or are they looking for better reporting or more accurate data? But thinking through how can you pitch it to them? So you're going to be selling it to your end users. And so it's important to be able to tell them how it's going to benefit them.
Aaron, I was wondering, you bring up a good point about, how it's going to impact them. Do you feel, or do you find that this kind of breaks down to a kind of a typical percentage, meaning like when doing this, you're going to find X percentage that are, super excited. Maybe there's going to be some that are upset, and maybe some that are kind of in the middle.
Yeah, I think that varies so much based on your company culture and how tech savvy people are. So I think as you're doing it, you'll know who's going to be more resistant. And we're going to talk about how to overcome that resistance with our next pitfall. So let's jump into that. The second pitfall is not having a champion. So if you're not familiar with a champion's a term that we use a lot in software rollouts. But when it comes to having a champion is somebody that helps to bridge the gap between the upper level management that's creating the software, has designed it and is ready to roll it out, and the end user that's going to be using it on an everyday basis. So let's talk about what this champion does. The role of the champion, they have kind of four main roles here. Let the slides catch up with us. There we go, awesome. This is what your champion's going to make you feel like you're jumping over those alligators there. But the role of the champion is to do a couple of things for you. One is that they're going to help you with your beta testing. So the beta testing is crucial because you're going to get to roll it out to the set of people that know that they're in beta test, and so they are able to give you feedback, and they're able to help you to solve some of those problems before it gets rolled out to the whole team. They're also going to help to share feedback, so they'll let you know what they like about the system or what they wish was different. The champion is also responsible for helping to create excitement around the change. So creating that contagious attitude of enthusiasm around the change is super helpful, and they can also help to assist in the training. So the champion really is essential to give you that outside perspective and help to reveal holes in the setup that you may not have previously noticed. One of the things there's a couple of holes that are often discovered by champions, and those are things like data import issues, because they're used to looking at the data, and so they'll be able to recognize, oh, there's a problem here. Or they may recommend like custom field changes of, hey, we should have a different drop down here, or maybe they can help to identify problems with pipeline or automation. So it's really important to get their feedback and getting in front of those problems to help get them corrected before they roll out to the rest of the team. So as you see here, looking at what is a champion, what makes a great champion, all champions definitely need to be well respected. So this should be somebody in your team that other team members listen to and they value their opinion. And because they're working to bridge the gap between the management team and the end users, it's important that they're great communicators, and that great communication will also be important for training. And then in order to be really effective at the beta testing, that's why I recommend that it's somebody that understands what the business needs. And it's a bonus if you can find somebody who knows what the management needs and also knows what the end user needs. That really helps to make a great champion. And then of course, that positive attitude about the change, because your champion is really going to be your cheerleader of the CRM. But things that I think we kind of get stuck on sometimes in thinking about a champion is thinking, oh, this has got to be somebody that's in senior management. That's not necessarily true. And it doesn't always need to be somebody that's tech savvy. In fact, oftentimes it can be helpful to get feedback from somebody that is going to be an end user and somebody who is more tech averse, because you're going to know what the challenges are as you're rolling it out to other people that are going to be using it and that maybe are a little bit more tech averse.
Aaron, you bring up a really interesting point, especially around identifying the right individual within the organization, someone that really knows the business front to back. I'm curious your thoughts. Do you find that there's a specific job title or kind of common job titles within organizations that you work with that are, going to be good fits to be like the champion within this rollout?
Yeah, some of the roles that I see most frequently are things like the office manager or the sales manager, sometimes like the marketing assistant, or sometimes even an administrative assistant, somebody who's in the data a lot, and knows, is working kind of that as a liaison between the top and the bottom. Oftentimes those people make great champions because they understand both sides.
Agreed.
Awesome. Okay, let's move on to pitfall number 3. The pitfall number 3 is failing to create training materials on your system. Now, every great CRM has a help center that has general information about how the CRM functions, right? Where people could go to learn how to do different setups. And those trainings are super helpful, especially for the staff as you're vetting the CRM or as you're learning about functions and deciding how you want to set things up. But in general, these trainings are less helpful for the end user. And the reason for that is because they're looking at the training going, how does this apply to me? And because with the general trainings, you're talking about here's how you can enter a lead, but on your training, you want to have specific things where you're saying, these are the fields that need to be filled out. Here's exactly how our pipeline works. And it's much more powerful to provide that training on your system with your data, your custom fields, and your processes. It really helps the end user be able to visualize how it's going to impact their workload. And because they have a connection with the information that they're seeing, it's easier for them to digest it and get on board. And I know that you may be thinking, oh man, how am I going to make custom training time? How am I going to make custom training? But it's really less work than you might imagine, because the software that's out there, like screen recording software like Loom that you could use to walk and talk through a video, and software like Trainual that manages the documentation in an engaging way, really help to make that custom training easier. And I am super passionate about training with what I do with standard operating procedures and with helping businesses train and onboard people. And so I really encourage you to put this custom training together because it's worth it. It's not just a one-time training. So yes, you will create training for the initial rollout, but you're doing much more than that. And you're creating a reference of training that's not you, which is super powerful. You want somebody to have a place to go to get answers without having to come and interrupt you all the time. And then that training now becomes a standard that your team can be held accountable to. You're saying this is the way that we are doing it. And so they know what that way is, they can reference that again. And you will reuse that training as you train new employees. And it's great too to have training in place so that if you make updates to the system, you have a place to roll out that update. So because I love training, I created a training tool for your training tools, because that's the kind of nerdiness around training that I love. But I did create this in-depth training for you that goes over how to do a full rollout plan. There's a swipe file in there that guides you step by step through that process. So I'm happy to share that with anybody watching today. You just need to enter in your email address at that URL and we'll get that immediately out to you.
Aaron, I'm curious with customized training, because some people can feel like it can be a lot of effort or a lot of work to put into it. Do you either A, find it challenging to convince people that it's worth it, and or how do you ultimately tie back to this is something that's going to be super worthwhile for them? Like ultimately, how do you convince them that this is something they should be thinking about?
Yeah, I think that the metrics speak for themselves in the adoption. You guys have already put so much money and effort and time into customizing the CRM that you really want to increase that adoption rate. And then when we talk about, hey, this is not one time, you're not creating it one time and nobody's going to look at it again. It really is going to be a reference that people use over and over again. And then the second thing to really help with that training and kind of get over that effort level bump is to break it down. The training really is not as difficult to create as one might imagine. So like I said, with like screen recording software like Loom and Trainual that helps to organize everything, it does make it much simpler to be able to create a comprehensive internal library.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to be adding more users down the road eventually. You're going to need to be able to enable and train them. It's just not a one-time thing. It's an ever evolving kind of ecosystem. So I think you bring up some great points there. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, let's move on to pitfall number 4. Pitfall number 4 is not providing hands-on training. So I think we've all been through a training where we've watched somebody do something and then went to go do it later on our own and couldn't remember how to replicate what they were doing. There's something just magical that happens when we are hands-on on the computer or on the tablet or whatever, putting in our own information. It's much more effective for you to demonstrate things and then allow the team to follow along with their own computers. So as you progress through the training too, I recommend that you do a series of trainings. And there's a couple of reasons for that. One is that you're going to show people how to use the CRM. If you only did that in one meeting and then you ask at the end, do you have any questions? And they say, no, because they haven't even been in the system yet, right? And so it's help, but then a week later, you're going to have a million questions. So I recommend that you create a series of trainings. And as you're doing that series of trainings, you can adjust the content. So initially, you're going to do a lot of training and a little implementation. So give them a taste of the system. And then maybe 3 days later, you do another training, but it's a little less on the training, more on the Q&A, more on the implementation, because they're going to have more questions now. And then you can scale out, how much you're actually training and how much they're implementing. Again, you can bump out the time frames too between the training. So, group them together at the beginning and then slowly space them out. And you can adjust to, when the training is required and when it's not required. You can customize that. But it's important to be able to think through and to plan and schedule those specific trainings. And then as you're doing the trainings, it's important for you to be role or task specific. So if you have a large team that you're rolling out to, I recommend that you break the training into different departments so that you're not overwhelming team members with information that doesn't apply to them. So if you're talking to a marketing team, they don't need to know how to onboard a new customer. It's totally different how they're going to be using the system. So it's helpful too to break it down. I wanted to go over a little bit of an agenda about how to do that hands-on training, what you should include in that. And you do want to be hands-on. That's why we've got our friend there typing there for you. But again, be role and task specific. I love to follow the watch one, do one, teach one. So if you were talking about leads, you'd say, here, watch me enter in a lead, and now you enter one in, and now teach somebody else how to do it. So that can be really effective. Also, when it comes to the live training, you should always have that Q&A and then set some goals for implementation. So they need to know that they're accountable for implementing what they've learned during that training session. So talk to them about, hey, you need to be able to, before our next training session, you need to have created a report or entered a lead or completed a pipeline or sent an email. But set some goals on what that implementation should look like between your different training sessions.
Aaron, one challenge that I know we run into a lot, especially with individuals and users being busier than ever, is not everybody has the ability to be hands-on in that training. Do you find that there's a middle ground? And if so, how do you typically approach that?
Yeah, and that is true, especially if you've got a large team. It's hard to get everybody in at the same time. Some of that is helpful if you break it down into smaller groups of training, so that you're saying, hey, we're going to get with the marketing team and do a training here. And then we'll meet with a different group. Another thing that I see sometimes is that you have more people than software. So you have more people than computers when you're doing the training. And so I've seen people bring in all kinds of laptops from home and everybody's getting on. So be creative with how you're getting the tools in. And then don't be afraid to do virtual training. That's a great way to do it too. You can do it on a live Zoom call where you are demonstrating and then asking them to do it. So just the same format as what you would do in person, you can do virtual as well.
Yep, I love that.
Great. Let's talk about pitfall number 5. Pitfall number 5 is not defining what implementation success looks like. So it's hard to hit a target that you're not aiming for. And so when you define success, then you'll be able to actually make a plan and adjustments to that plan as needed to reach success. So there's a couple things that I recommend you include as part of that definition of success. One of those is dates. So putting in, these are going to be our training dates, and these are going to be our implementation dates. And that'll help to keep your team accountable and preparing for the rollout. The other thing that I recommend that you set in as goals is goals for utilization. So there's lots of different ways that could look. That could look like the number of logins or how many records were created or tasks completed or emails sent. There's a lot of different options for what that utilization could look like, but it's important that you get clear on what those goals are, and then be able to track those metrics to know when success is happening.
You know, those milestones are super critical, you know, because it also helps validate and reinforce the velocity that's happening. I'm curious your thoughts on when you think about these metrics and when these metrics are being defined, do you think about these through by user, by team, both? I would really love I'd love your thoughts on that. I'm a super heavy metric person myself, so I'd love to kind of hear your thoughts.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the metrics that you have are going to be different for the team, but I recommend that you track the metrics by user. So for example, you may track the number of new leads added by, in the sales department, but that is not a metric that would make sense for the operational staff. So you can set different metrics based on what department that they're working on, but then I would track how those metrics are actually fulfilled by individual. And that's a place where, your champions can really help to impact what success looks like too, and help you to define what some of those metrics should be.
Totally.
Awesome. Okay, let's talk about pitfall number 6 here, a boring rollout. So in team 1, we talked about how your team vision your vision may be different from the rest of your team. And how you present that rollout can also help to bridge that gap and get your team excited about it. And in our entertainment-based society, we've all got super short attention spans, right? And we love to have things gamified. And so I'm going to give you some ideas for gamification. But one thing to remember as you're doing this gamification is it's not going to just help the end user, it's also going to help you on the admin side. And the reason for that is that because if you are saying, hey, I want you to put in a certain number of leads per month or whatever, then you are also going to be pulling reports and getting practice on the admin side as your team is getting experience on the end user side. So here's a couple of fun things that you can do. Some people love to do like a nice visual, to kind of, if your team likes competition, it's a good way to be able to put some of that competition together. You can give out prizes like movie passes or gift cards. If you have a trophy that you pass around each day for who got the best implementation. And sometimes even just a simple Slack shout out saying, hey, I noticed that this person, has been in the system and great job with adding in that new opportunity or whatever. But there's lots of different ways you can gamify it. So think about what works best with your company culture and put a plan together for that.
I love the gamifying of it and the adoption and how that kind of ties users in, because I mean, everyone loves that feeling of being like a winner or winning. Have you seen particular prizes that have been very successful when you've implemented this approach?
A lot of it depends on your culture, but one thing that I have seen that works well overall and is really fun is to get a big prize, a TV or something big, and then have people earn raffle tickets based on the metrics that they get for implementation. And so they're getting their raffle in and they're getting their tickets in, and then it's a big reveal when you do the big draw, maybe on your full implementation day, be able to say, okay, we're up and rolling, and who won the TV, and you can pull that metric, that raffle ticket out.
So I love that. Invite me to that training. I'll join that one.
Yes.
Yeah,
Awesome.
I have to say, Aaron, this one really stands out to me. It seems super simple, but it's so common, right? I think that people feel bored even before they go to a training. And so by gamifying it, you're really differentiating it in their minds.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Okay, let's talk about pitfall number 7. So pitfall number 7 here is forgetting to collect feedback. So we've talked a little bit about asking for feedback with champions when you're testing the team, but I want to talk about feedback on a broader scale. And so there's 2 main areas where you would need to look at collecting feedback. One is feedback on the training, and one is feedback on the system itself. So when you're looking at feedback on the training, there's 2 ways that you can gather that feedback. One is asking, asking people, what questions do you have? Because if one person has a question, that multiple people have that same question. And that can help you to improve your training, in your next training session. It can also help to improve that training for new hires because you know what their questions are going to be. It's also important to get feedback through monitoring the system itself. So pulling some of those admin reports to see where is data being entered incorrectly, or how, is there something that people are doing that's wrong within the system? So monitoring the use as new data is coming in, and then helping to create training to fill that gap. The other way that you need to be open to receiving feedback is on the CRM functionality itself. So I suggest not opening this up in broad all the time. Hey, send me what your wish list is all the time, because sometimes their wish list is something that will be revealed later on in the training. You know, maybe you've already addressed it. But I recommend that you collect suggestions after each scheduled training. So, you know, you do your Q&A at the end of your training, and then you say, okay, you know, what if you have any suggestions on or feedback on the CRM itself that you want to talk about, you know, you can be open to that. And then if you do decide to implement any of the changes or suggestions, make sure you're letting the team know that you're choosing to implement or not implement those changes and the reason behind that. And that'll help you to improve your system as well as to improve your training.
I couldn't agree more. You know, something that I believe in a lot of the leaders, you know, within our organization think about is feedback is a gift. But you mentioned something there that I just wanted to call out, because closing the loop on feedback is super important too, because it's one thing, you know, to get that feedback, but to let them know, hey, that feedback that you gave, it's been implemented. Like that's a good dopamine hit. Like that's really exciting. But also let them know, hey, you know what? We're not going to be implementing that right now, is also really validating to at least that let your team know that they've been heard. And so it sounds like what you're also saying is it's important to do this, you know, right away. And also like after each session is kind of like the timing cadence you were talking through. Is that true?
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. So after each session, and you're going to get more suggestions as they come down the line. One of my favorite questions that I love to ask at every team meeting is, what could we do to be more profitable, and what could we do to be more efficient? And oftentimes the CRM stuff comes in on those points too. So being open, not only during that training phase, but somebody else may come along with that has an awesome idea about how to improve your efficiency. And so I definitely be open to that and closing those feedback loops.
Yeah, creating that safe space so that they feel comfortable talking about it. That's super critical.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so here are my big takeaways. So at the beginning, we promised that our goals were to help you to build a comprehensive adoption plan and to get your team on board. And so to address building that comprehensive plan, I highly recommend you get a champion, you create your own training materials that are on your specific system, do some live trainings, and define what success and implementation is going to look like. And then to get your team on board, we've talked about how you need to share your why. So why are we doing this? Why, you know, how is it going to benefit you as an individual user? And then make sure you're providing support through those live trainings and through accepting that feedback, and then make it fun through gamification. And when you're doing these pieces, you really can increase your chances of having a successful adoption and ultimately having a better product at the end because of the feedback that you receive from your team.
Erin, thank you so much for those 7 tips. And Zeke, appreciate you riding along there as well with some great questions. We're going to have a second to get some more questions from the audience here. So make sure that you're taking this time, if you have a question, to chat it in via the Q&A. But again, Erin, thank you so much. Those are great tips that businesses can follow to ensure they successfully install, launch, and adopt CRM in their own organizations. So excited about sharing those with everybody that joined us today. So Erin, why don't you take a few seconds and talk more about your business, if you could?
Sure. Yeah, so at Business Made Simple, our mission is to systemize and document the processes of small businesses so that they can grow and scale and successfully train teams. And how we do that in practicality is by creating playbooks of standard operating procedures that you can use. And those playbooks help the owners to be able to step away out of daily operations and be able to delegate successfully without losing any kind of quality, because you've documented what are the rules that you want your team to play by. And so I love being able to do that. And you can kind of get a sample for that. Like I mentioned, in that free in-depth training on the CRM rollout plan, and that's that link there that you're seeing below. But along with this rollout plan, you'll get a swipe file that I'm happy to share. It's walk you step by step. And this will give you an idea too about what customized training could look like. So it'll give you a good visual. But we love being able to help make businesses simple by helping them develop those rules and implement them so that they can, so owners can focus on the things that they need to, and everyone can be successful in their own roles.
Well, thank you so much, Erin. And for all of you watching, if a new CRM is in your future, it's a good time to check out Insightly. Insightly CRM is easy to adopt. We've been told by our customers, it's very customizable and integrates easily with every other application you use to run your business. We hear from our customers that they are fully up and running with Insightly in as few as 8 weeks, sometimes sooner, and some are growing revenue 3x in less than a year. Customers also tell us that they're able to significantly improve key sales metrics using Insightly. They're able to increase sales pipeline, sales velocity, deal size, deal predictability, things like that. Help aligning marketing, sales, and CX teams. And they've really found that they can improve their team's efficiency and reduce errors with advanced workflow automation that the system offers. Insightly, again, it's extremely flexible system and customizable and really grows with you as a business. And, you know, as we are near the end here, you won't have to worry about the pitfalls and hungry alligators of CRM adoption by choosing Insightly. And Zeke can tell our viewers a little bit more about our own service plans that we provide to our customers.
Yeah, thank you, Chip. You know, we talked a lot about those challenges today, and our ability to help provide an advanced onboarding system and process with aligning you with a CSM, a technical account manager, the support team, really surrounding you with a team of individuals that are going to be there to be aligned with your business needs. One of the advantages of our company now being fully remote and distributed is that we can also align the team, the CSM, with you potentially in or close to your time zone, which is going to be huge. And so they're going to be there to work alongside you to achieve those long-term goals, to take you through the initial implementation and that adoption, but also that ongoing evolution, because we talked about that earlier. You're going to have new users come on, your business is going to change. And as your business changes, you want to make sure that the CRM is going to be able to keep up with you. So we're there to help support you through that change and that overall adoption. Being able to see, to mitigate those risks, to be able to see the higher engagement, and also the CRM to help your business grow is, it's really our North Star and what we're there. And when you compare that to, legacy tools, this is where Insightly, as a company and as teams, we're going to be there and we're going to help shine above all those. So it's definitely something we're super passionate about. It's why I get up every single day and do what I do. So if you want to know more, please chat with us. We'd love to get on a call with you, understand your needs, and see how we can help align with that, and create that personalized demo for you, to move things forward.
Yeah, thanks so much, Zeke. So why don't we move into questions? We're getting some coming in here. Again, please chat yours in via the Q&A if you do have questions. So I might hit this one first. So it came in with a bit of a mystery, but typically, how does a CRM implementation and training take for a small to mid-sized company, say under 50 employees, Erin?
So a lot of that depends on this customer support success that you get. So, I highly recommend working with a company I think a lot of it is just getting it customized and right. And so I think your metric that you were saying of 8 weeks is super reasonable for getting it customized. And then I would plan on another month to be able to get it tested by your beta team, and then get everybody trained. So in general, you're looking about 3 months if you're doing it on your own, and that can be a lot faster if you've got somebody on the CRM side or a consultant that can help to customize it for you.
Yeah, that's great. One interesting question Jordan P is asking here: do any CRMs gamify on the platform that you're aware of, Zeke or Erin?
Yeah, I don't know in gamification as far as like number of points and that kind of thing, but a lot of CRMs, I know Insightly included, has great dashboards where you can make more of that visual. But I think as far as gamifying what the rewards are going to look like and that kind of stuff, that I don't know of any CRMs offhand that do that. But you can definitely build some strong dashboards that will make that visual for you.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I'm a huge fan of dashboards and also leveraging workflows, for notifications, leveraging tools like App Connect when deals are won to notify teams via Slack channel. There's definitely ways, Jordan, that you can build that gamification in there. And it could be something as simple as Erin's point, which would be utilizing our native dashboards. But you can definitely, and I'll tend to nerd out a little bit because I do work on the professional services side. So I'm very technical in that nature. So if you want to talk about how to take it even further with some automation and integrations, I think we could definitely find some cool ways to do that with you.
I'm kind of right there with you, Zeke. I think it's, a customized dashboards where you're dragging in your own cards and stuff can definitely feel like gamification. So
totally.
Great question here. Leah A is asking what tools are provided to help the planning process of customizations and data mapping. Zeke, that might be good for you.
Yeah, so one of the things that we'll do, Leah, is we'll have a kickoff session with you where we're gonna understand everything that came through that sales cycle and everything that you shared with the sales team. But we're also we're gonna take that a step further, and we're gonna further validate that, and we're gonna provide a checklist for you. Aaron talked about playbooks. We do something very similar where we have playbooks that will walk you through that and really start to look at your timelines and take your timelines and fit that into the checklist and build those necessary things and making sure that we're properly setting up to meet those milestones and to have that level of customization for you. That is super key for us.
Great. Did you have anything to add to that, Aaron? I mean, from your own perspective?
No, I think that I think you hit it right on. Yeah, I think as far as that planning process and data mapping and that, it really is critical to put a lot of that thought in at the beginning. And I think it's super smart to work with your customer service reps at your CRM to be able to help you with that customization.
Great. So Aaron, I wonder if you could speak to, what have you seen, sort of like the best timing to start the implementation? If there's any tips that you would have, parts of the year, days, morning, evening?
Yeah. So I think different businesses are different because some businesses are more seasonal than others. So like we work with a lot of HVAC companies, for example, and HVAC has a super busy season and a less busy season. So if your business is seasonal like that, I recommend starting the implementation or starting the planning of your CRM and the customization right at the start of your slow season and plan to complete the rollout before your busy season so that people aren't trying to learn while they are also, in the throes of their busy season. As far as like days and things like that, I don't think that really has an impact. It's just more of thinking through what the workload of your team looks like and making sure that you're not overwhelming them when they're already busy.
Right, you're going to want to make sure that your team has time to pay attention and is not frustrated and bored, as you showed with some of those graphics you're presenting to them. Another great question that came in. So is it okay to have a lot of customizations in a CRM, or is it best to change our system to fit the CRM structure? I know that CRM customization and kind of configuration is a super commonly asked question, and it's a common need. And Zeke, maybe you can talk a little bit about the customization capabilities of Insightly.
Yeah. I mean, it's really easy to over-engineer and to overthink your implementation, and that's actually one of the pitfalls that we hear, or one of the challenges we hear as when users are coming off of other tools, is they've over-engineered it, they've really over-cranked it. So I don't think there's anything wrong with customization at all. I do find a lot of value in taking a look at what are the core functions that are built within the tool first. And that does mean at times you're gonna have to readjust your own business processes to fit that. And I think it's going to be dependent on your business, but I think there's definitely some give and take. But starting with the core functions that are in there first, and then from there, starting to branch out into, the more advanced features. Think of it as like the land and expand type approach, getting your team in there and using some of the core functionality that hundreds of thousands of customers find a ton of value in is a great starting point. And then from there, you start asking for feedback and how can we start to make things, how do we start to build in improvements? And those improvements sometimes can come with levels of customization. And that's when you're going to continuously evolve the system. I don't think it's ever done. I think you're always going to be making little tweaks here and there because your business is going to change a little bit. You're going to add in, you're going to add to your team's going to grow. And as your team grows and maybe they start to become remote, you need to rethink things a little bit. And so you got to be okay with, readjusting that customization organization, but you don't want to start heavy on the front end and have to completely, blow the thing up. That's why you want to start small and grow into it.
Yeah, and I think Zeke on that too. One thing that I've seen a lot of people do is they want to go straight to like full automation. And sometimes it's better to start without all the full automation where you're proving the process manually first and then doing the automation. Because if it's all automated, you may not know what's happening behind all that automation. So
Agreed.
I completely agree with you on that.
Great, thank you, Zeke. So, I know that a lot of go-to-market teams across, sales and marketing use Insightly, and we have a great question for, it's anonymous here, but does Insightly have an in-house proposal generator that if you're a go-to-market team, you could use?
I'll take that one. So we do. I mean, we have our products, price books, and quotes, but we also have our opportunity object that you can tie all that together to create that proposal into create that quote, and then you can then tie on some integrations either through like PandaDoc or use something like App Connect so that you can tie in an e-signature. Every sales team out there that I know of has some form of e-signature and has an integration need. So we have tools that we offer that can help support that. So I think in short, yes, we do have that. And there's a lot of, really creative ways you can do that with opportunities, price books, products, and quotes, and also leveraging something like App Connect, which could help tie in a third-party tool like a DocuSign or a Panda or, Adobe Sign.
Great tips, Zeke. Well, we've run out of time for questions during this webinar. If your question wasn't answered, someone from our team will reach out to you directly this week. I want to thank Zeke and Aaron again for joining us today. Thanks. Great content. Really appreciated it, Aaron.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
And Zeke, appreciate you coming and asking great questions. Have a great day, everyone.